publishing something like that, might as well retire. I'd be finished.
This is an inconvenient study for the entire vaccine agenda.
Hi, everybody. We have a special guest with us right now. Del Bigtree is a television and film producer who worked as an Emmy Award-winning producer on the daytime talk show The Doctors. He also produced the 2016 film Vaxxed, From Cover Up to Catastrophe, and currently hosts a weekly video show on Rumble called The High Wire. Del's latest film, here it is, An Inconvenient Study, premieres this Sunday at the Malibu Film Festival. Welcome to the show, Del Bigtree. Hey, Del.
Jimmy, it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you. Honored to have you on the show. You do such great work. I just want to show people the trailer for this film so we can talk about it. Here it is.
All right.
We are now the sickest country in the world.
It is now believed that over 54% of our kids have a permanent chronic disease. Shouldn't we look closest at the one product designed to alter our immune system for life? There'd be one easy study to rule it out, the vaccinated versus unvaccinated study.
As fate would have it, Del met Marcus Servos.
He agreed to do a vaxxed versus unvaxxed study.
Kids that are vaccinated, it doesn't look so good.
4.47 times the amount.
5.5 times risk.
6 times increase.
Amongst the unvaccinated group, there were 0.
Like, if this is true, this is devastating.
And it needs to be published.
This is information the public should have had in 2020, and I forced the issue.
Did you see how Ford responded?
They said this report was not published because it did not meet the rigorous scientific standards we demand as a premier medical research institution.
They have forced our hand. We're going to have to show them the footage.
I'm going to bring hidden cameras and recording equipment so that no matter what happens at this dinner, I can prove it happened.
Doing well. Good to see you.
What do you think about the study you guys have done?
Well, I think it's a good study, but it does have limitations.
Do you find any flaws in the study? I mean, is there a way they could do the study better?
Not that I put it out just how it is. I don't want to say it's not the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do, but I just don't want to. Somebody's going to come back and they're going to say, the study was flawed.
The unpublished Henry Ford analysis is fundamentally flawed.
How about looking at this as important scientific information that can inform how the proper study should be done, won't be taken like that. And then I can say, because there's a political agenda to it.
Is what your study shows, is it important?
Yeah, it is important. I'm just not going to do it. I'm not going to do it.
If I can't get the study out, then what hope is there for every kid in the future? I said to you, if you do this study, you're going to come under fire. You said, I don't care about that. I'm all about the data, and I'm about to retire anyway. That's literally what you said.
Yeah.
So your energy has definitely changed on that. But
energy's changing. Publishing something like that, might as well retire. I'd be finished.
This is an inconvenient study for the entire vaccine agenda.
So this, by the way, this premieres October 12th at the Malibu Film Festival, 11 p.m. Pacific time. For tickets, go to MalibuFilmFestival.com. Wow, that's quite a barn burner of a premiere, of a preview for that. Tell me all about this. So now you were actually instrumental in getting this Henry Ford study that showed that the vaccinated children had a 57% higher rate of chronic illness as opposed to 17% of unvaccinated kids. How did that study come about, and why are you at the spearhead of this?
Well, as you pointed out, Jimmy, I first traveled the country with the documentary Vaxxed back in 2016, which was about a whistleblower inside the CDC that had come forward and said they were committing scientific fraud on the vaccine safety study, specifically around the conversation of autism. Well, while I was on tour with that film, someone introduced me to the head of infectious disease at Henry Ford. We happened to be traveling through Detroit. They said, would you like to meet Dr. Marcus Servos? Now, he was at the center as one of the main scientists that was involved in the Flint, Michigan water crisis. If you remember Legionnaire's disease, all that, he was doing that investigation and stood up against the health department there, protected a lot of people. So a really heroic figure. Anyway, I had dinner with him, and it was a funny dinner because I'm traveling with Vax, and he said to me, I've watched your film Vax. It's very compelling. But he said, there's something you've been saying while you're on this tour that I see online that I take issue with. You keep saying that they've never done the proper science to say that the vaccines are safe, the childhood vaccines. He says, well, obviously, I thought that was a ridiculous statement. I sit on some of the biggest databases in the world, so I went and looked into that so that I could sit here and tell you you're wrong. And he said, and I'm shocked that I have to admit to you that we haven't done any safety studies on the childhood vaccines. And he said to me, now that doesn't mean they're not safe. It just means scientifically we haven't proven they're safe. And I said, that's all I've been saying. He said, no, I respect you've been very accurate about how you're stating it. So that was how the conversation started. But then he said, well, look, I'm pro-vaccine. I believe in vaccines. I don't know what I can do for you. And I said, well, look, most of the people that have been on this issue that have vaccinated your children, experts around the world have been demanding, why don't we do a vaccinated versus a completely unvaccinated comparative study? If vaccines are really making our children healthier, if vaccines aren't causing all these injuries that parents are complaining about, the best way to prove that would be a vaccinated versus unvaccinated study. I said, would you ever do that study? And he said to me, yeah, I'd do that study. I mean, I was blown away, Jimmy. I was like, holy cow. I mean, this guy is just stated to me that he's pro-vaccine. He's at a major research, the Henry Ford Health Center where he works is one of the biggest research institutes in the world doing scientific studies. And here he is saying, yeah, I'll do that study. And I said to him, well, look, if it turns out the way I think it will, then it could be damaging to your career. And he said to me, I don't care about my career. I don't work that way. I follow the data where it leads me. And, but besides, I'm about ready to retire. And so that was 2016. I kind of called him once in a while, like, how's the study coming? He wasn't doing it. Then I grabbed my lawyer and right around 2018, 19, we went and visited him. I said, look, prove us wrong. Do this study you said you would do. And he finally did it. And we had one rule. Whatever the results, publish it, show the world. Like, we're willing to take the risk. You're taking, like, whatever it is. He says, of course, I'll publish it. Well, he did finish the study. They finished the study, and then they never published it. And so we've been trying to get him to publish it for the last several years. And finally, Senator Ron Johnson got his hands on the study, said, we shouldn't wait any longer. He posted the study on the Senate website. We had a hearing about it a few weeks ago. And this documentary is about how that study came about, what you see in that study. And of course, the last time I was going to meet with Zervos to try and talk him into publishing the study, I decided to bring hidden cameras and recording equipment because, whatever he said, I wanted people to know what he believed about the study, no matter what would happen in the future. And that's what's at the heart of this film. You saw some of the clips. He's saying it's a good study. I would publish it just as it is. But ultimately, why didn't he? As he says to me, he's afraid of losing his job, which, Jimmy, you've been reporting on these issues now. You've had many of the same scientists and experts on when it came to the COVID crisis. Anyone that stuck their neck out there said, I don't think this vaccine is going to stop transmission, or I don't think masks actually work. I'm looking at science. Or even worse, I don't think these lockdowns are the right approach. There's better ways, the Great Barrington Declaration. Every scientist, every doctor that stood up to try and tell us the truth were immediately under threat. Some of them even lost their licenses. Those that were trying to use, ivermectin or hydroxychloroquine. I mean, we've just seen this deplorable state of science where scientists and doctors aren't free to practice medicine and interact with their patients. I think this is why this story is so important. These doctors and scientists are afraid to ask very important questions we need to ask right now. As the documentary in the film points out, we have the sickest nation of children in the industrialized world. We're now over more than half our kids, 1 in 2 kids has a chronic disease now in America. That's up from just 12.8% in the 1980s. So in 40 years, we've seen the greatest decline in human health that has ever been recorded. And meanwhile, you see this skyrocketing vaccine rate from 10 vaccines in the 1980s to now well over 54. It's like 72 shots if you separate all the elements in them. With COVID and future vaccines, they think that our children will be getting 100 vaccines in the near future. And so just to finish this all up, when you look at studies like this, you can't look at them just on their own. You've got to look at them, with other science. Is this science reproducible? We now have 4 or 5 studies just like this that compare vaccinated to unvaccinated that are showing this same signal, that the vaccinated are actually much sicker, have much greater rates of chronic disease than the unvaccinated. So on its own, one study, maybe it's an anomaly. When you start seeing all these studies put together, it gives you a different lens. And what we're demanding, really our call to action, is HHS has to now do this study. Every government in the world should have to take their databases and compare the vaccinated to the completely unvaccinated and see, are you seeing the same signal? Because if we are, then vaccines aren't making our children healthier. They are clearly, it appears, making them sicker, which is the exact opposite of what any doctor wants to be doing or anyone wants to be doing this vaccine program. It needs to be under review. You're on this now. I'm on this. So many people, in social media are looking at this. And now we have Robert Kennedy Jr. at HHS. I was his director of communications when he was running for president. The world is changing around this conversation. And this documentary, I think, stands as one of the major reasons why we got to look at this comparison.
Yeah, this would be a groundbreaking study had they released it. And of course, he admitted he didn't release it because he was afraid for his career. And, well, we've seen what big pharma money can do, right? So when Dr. Robert Malone, Peter McCullough, you, Pierre Corey, when anybody spoke out, Dr. John Campbell even, when they just used hard science to speak about ivermectin or speak about the vaccine or about COVID virus in general, they immediately got smeared in the media because the media is bought by big pharma. And also medical boards are also corrupted by big pharma. People don't realize not only medical journals, but medical boards are corrupted. And the medical boards would then try to take away their accreditation, which they did with Dr. Pierre Corey. And they try to take away their license, which they did with other people. Mary Talley Bowden was also... So many great doctors who were courageous and stuck their chin out. That's how it works, right? So big pharma not only corrupts the media, they corrupt the medical boards and the medical journals, so we can't get important studies published even, right? The funny thing to me is that he was so confident that his research was going to find that vaccines led to better health outcomes for children, that he gave you a promise that no matter what it showed, the study, that he was gonna go ahead and print it and release it. Yet it showed the exact opposite. So do you think he was even more surprised than you were?
Well, I mean, look, we can only speculate, right? I can't get into someone's head on what the experience was like, but it is my firm belief and opinion that had the results been the exact opposite in this study, had it been the unvaccinated, it had 2.5 times the rate of chronic disease. 250% increased rate is what that means. 6 times the rate of neurodevelopmental disorders. If they'd have shown that that was the unvaccinated group, Jimmy, they would have rushed this thing onto the market. They would have rushed it to publication. It would have been the biggest headline across the world. Forget Robert Kennedy Jr., forget Jimmy Dore, Bigtree. They're all anti-vaxxers. They're wrong, and we have the proof. That's what I believe would have happened with the study. Only one problem. It was the opposite. It was the opposite of what they want. It's the opposite of what the pharmaceutical industry wants us to believe. And what it's showing is this signal that I've said we've seen time and time again in this growing body of injury, of chronic disease, neurological disorders, and autoimmune disease, autism skyrocketing. It just isn't what we are supposed to believe, and that's why I believe it wasn't published. But he says it, right? I would publish this as it is, and this is important because we've received a cease and desist letter from Henry Ford Health. They are accusing us of defamation, and I want to just, as clearly as I can, I'm paraphrasing, but essentially they're saying, because we're saying it's the results that kept them from publishing it, they're saying, no, it's not good data, it's not good science, it didn't meet, the rigors of scientific standards that we expect at Henry Ford Health. That is what they're saying. But all I can say about that is Look, I went to the head of this study. This isn't just some Joe Schmo. This is Dr. Marcus Zervos. He is a world-renowned virologist. He's one of the top scientists at Henry Ford. This guy does studies for them. He was the head of the Moderna vaccine trial for them. They loved him then, you know, and so I'm trusting this guy. When he says to me, it's a good study, I don't think it could be done any better, I would publish it as it is, but I'm worried about losing my job. That's why people got to see this. I mean, look, you can look at the evidence, you can look at the study, you can see what he's saying and all of this hidden camera but at the heart of it, Jimmy, we can look at it like a story, but this is our story. These are our kids in the middle of this now. You know, that they're playing ping pong and playing games with, well, should we publish, should we not? Why didn't we? Why did we? Look, if vaccines are making our kids healthier, we need proof of that right now. We need you to prove to us that the vaccinated have lower rates of autism, lower rates of ADHD, lower rates of allergies, lower rates of eczema, lower rates of all of these things that are skyrocketing in our kids. And then look, then I won't have anything I can say. Del Bigtree's done, Robert Kennedy Jr.'s done, and that's where at the heart of this, Jimmy, as we think about sensible human beings, people, you know, I think we got to ask ourselves, why has that study never been done? Why is not a government in the world, why has our own government never said, hey, look, we compared these two groups of people, the vaccinated, the unvaccinated. The vaccinated are healthier. They're shining. They have no autoimmune disease. They don't have neurological disorders. Don't you think that they know that if they could have put that study forward, that there would be no anti-vaxxers? You wouldn't have a show talking about this. I wouldn't have a show talking about this. And certainly Robert Kennedy Jr. would not be HHS secretary. But they've never been able to prove that the vaccinated are healthier. They can't do that study. That should scare the hell out of everyone in the world right now with children. Why can't they do the most obvious study and show us that the vaccinated are healthier? That's what the heart of this movie is really about, and that's the question we're asking.
Well, I have a sneaking suspicion, just like with this study, that they actually probably did do studies. And they never turned out the way they wanted to. They never showed that vaccinated children were healthier than unvaccinated children. And that's why they probably got buried. I'm guessing they had to have done these studies, just like this one. Came out wrong. They didn't want to share it with people. So I think this is really, it's a bombshell of a study and it's a bombshell of a movie. And I think it's really important, this movie, because even people in this space who have dedicated their recent career to vaccines didn't know about this study. In fact, I was talking to Dr. John Campbell, who's done great work on COVID and the COVID vax just last week, and he didn't have any idea about this study. And I told him about it, and he immediately went and covered it, did a video on his YouTube channel. So I think it's important, this movie, to raise everyone's consciousness about it. And it's going to be at the Malibu Film Festival, October 12th at 11 a.m., 2 p.m. Eastern time. But you also will then make it available on your at a website. It's called inconvenientstudy.com, and that's going to be premiering live October 12th at 5 p.m. Pacific time and 8 p.m. Eastern time at aninconvenientstudy.com. So fantastic. So did you fund this stuff yourself? Do you get people to help you fund to do a movie like this? Because it's not cheap. I know that.
No, Jimmy, all the work that we do is funded by our nonprofit, the Informed Consent Action Network. That funds my weekly talk show, thehighwire.com, which is our educational program. It funds, we have over 90 lawsuits across the country that are being fought for medical freedom. We fought some of the military cases during COVID to make sure that our best and brightest men and women were allowed to stay in service when they were trying to force them to get the COVID vaccine. We won back the religious exemption from vaccinations in Mississippi. We spent 3 years fighting for that so that you have the right to choose whether you want to vaccinate your kids or not. We're deep in a lawsuit right now in West Virginia. I don't know if you've been paying attention to that, where the battle is on. We think we're going to win back the religious exemption there, which will mean for many decades you had to vaccinate in order to go to school. We believe that that's a human right. We believe that's a choice. I'll tell you, if you don't control what's injected into your body, then you don't have, you're not a free citizen. You have the same rights as a farm animal. That's how they're treating us. That's what a forced vaccine program says about our kids. It means they're not your kids, they're the government's kids, and we inject them with whatever we want. There's nothing you can do about it. So that's the heart of the work that we do. That's why this film is so important. Look, I'm not here to take vaccines away from people. It's a free country. Take all the vaccines you want. You're raising your kids the way. If you believe in giving them vaccines, that's great too, but it should be a choice, and you should know the risks that are there. And I can say honestly, I've won lawsuits against the government. I've won against HHS, FDA, CDC. That's what's the body of the work that we've done. And there are real warning labels that people are not seeing of these vaccines, real risks of brain swelling in your children that will leave lifelong permanent neurological damage. They know this for a fact. We're not being told, so we're just trying to inform the public. That's why I called our nonprofit the Informed Consent Action Network. We are just trying to inform people, and nothing's going to do it like this movie. And by the way, it's free. So it's from the donations to ICANN. If people want to donate, they can go to any of our websites, iCanDecide.org. We'll have a donate button at aninconvenientstudy.com. But I don't care if you don't want to give money, that's fine. I want you to share this film with everyone you know. This is the only way we can pressure our government agencies right now to do a bigger version of this study. We need, and by the way, it's an international film. Send it to everyone you know all across the world, because Germany should be doing the study. Spain should be doing the study. China should be doing the study. We should get to the bottom of this. We need to compare the vaccinated to the completely unvaccinated and see, are the unvaccinated as healthy as we're hearing they are? If so, then something's got to change, and it's got to change soon.
Okay, well, just so YouTube doesn't cancel my show, I have to let people know that the vaccines, according to the government, have been completely tested and are safe and effective, even though I know for a fact they haven't been tested against a placebo. That's a fact. Which I guess there's another way to test them, but apparently it's not against a placebo. Anyway, Del, I really appreciate you coming on. Congratulations on the new movie. I'm going to be there on Sunday to moderate a panel discussion after the movie at the Malibu Film Festival. And anybody who can't make that, you should come. You should go check it out at aninconvenientstudy.com. That is will be premiering October 12th. 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Great work, Del. Anything else you'd like to tell people before we say goodbye?
That's it, Jimmy. It's rare we have an opportunity we can actually help make a difference in the world. A lot of times we just feel overwhelmed. The government's out of our control. It's media, it's moments like this where we have a tool that we can share far and wide. It's what happened with Vax. It's what happened on the COVID story. We can wake people up. We can really save children's lives. Everyone out there in your audience, if they'll watch this film, if they see this film and they like it, share it with everyone you know, because you know for a fact CNN's not going to talk about it. MSNBC is not going to talk about it. Mainstream media is going to try to shut this down. This is a we the people moment, and we need everybody to do the best they can to help us get this out there. So thank you, Jimmy, for being there. I look forward to the panel. It's going to be awesome.
Okay. Del Bigtree, great work. See you Sunday. Thanks for coming on, pal. October 19th, we'll be in Irvine, California. We'll be in Australia. Then we'll be in Burbank, California the day after Thanksgiving. And then Pottstown, Pennsylvania, December 6th. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets.